Hi, Christina.
Hi.
I'm so excited for this conversation. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so excited as well. I feel like this is a good conversation to have on a Friday. So happy to be here.
Yes, and we are very happy to have you. So, this is Hard Launch. Hard Launch is a community where women thrive beyond their 9 to 5, connect with like-minded entrepreneurs, and launch on the brighter side of the hustle. And who better to chat with us about that than Cristina Jerome? So, Cristina Jerome is a DMV-based community leader and marketer who prides herself on mastering talent, entertainment, and brand marketing. After spending 10 years in marketing, she pivoted into the wellness space, feeling mentally burnt out and wanting community outside her usual work circles. Christina's business, Off Worque, helps creatives, industry professionals, and entrepreneurs find community outside of their workplaces and cure burnout through events, workshops, and insightful conversations. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about Marketer Hub first.
Okay. Yeah.
So last year, you were the keynote speaker, and now a fresh round of congratulations are in order because
Thank
just
you.
yesterday you led an off work event, right, at Marketer Hub.
Yeah.
Uh, and this was at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of
Mhm.
Maryland's African American History and Culture Museum, right?
Yeah.
And so, just so that we're all on the same page about this incredible organization, Marketer Hub. Marketer Hub is the landmark annual event by Black women marketers,
Mhm.
which is a membership community dedicated to increasing visibility and influence of Black women in the marketing industry. And it's founded on the principles of advocacy, accessibility, community, and sisterhood. So, Christina, talk to us about the Off Work partnership this year at Marketer Hub.
Yeah, so honestly, it's really exciting to see how Marketer Hub has grown. This is only their second year, so I'm excited to see that even doing conferences like this. But
Yeah.
I really appreciate them creating space for my pivot. As you said, I was their keynote speaker last year, and we chatted a bit about how networking to friendship pipelines can be a thing. And this year, I wanted to come back to talk about work-life balance, and they appreciated that. Again, my personal pivot and also like a career pivot for me to come back and do that. So with Off Work, we have a conversation card game, which we'll get into a bit later. But I was able to play the card game live with them. It was the first time I was able to do it. But it's a nice
Wow.
integration from me being their keynote speaker and them seeing me in the marketing space to now them seeing me in a wellness space. And it tied really well. People received the game really well. We sold some games, which is nice to get to talk to marketers and understand like how they are lacking that work-life balance. So on one hand, it's just like, thank you for Marketer Hub for giving me the space to pivot and showcase that, but also holding space for what marketers really do need, which is rest, wellness, mental health resources. So here I was to serve that. I was excited.
Incredible. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, to your exact point about your observations and your lived experience of what marketers need.
Mhm.
So, you've got a very impressive corporate career leading media and social media strategy across different brands, including some heavy hitters, Westbrook with Jada Pinkett-Smith, HBOMax projects with Issa Rae, Adidas, Topicals, Camille Rose, Live Nation. So, I always ask this next question because it helps frame the why for your entrepreneurship, right? So when it comes to your career, what are your values? And you can think of these as what are your operating principles?
Yeah, I realized over the pandemic that flexibility is extremely important to me. I realized that working from home is a thing. I'd never been in a space where I was able to work from home. So I realized like that was a value of mine to be able to be flexible, have work-life balance, be able to work from home, be able to work from anywhere, really. I realized that, again, I work in marketing. I work in social media marketing specifically. So if I'm not on set, do I really need to be there? Not really. I can be on the beach. I can be at home. I can be on my coffee table. I can be at the local coffee shop. It doesn't matter. So I realized through the pandemic and like the really like start of my career that I don't need to be confined to like what corporate structure really is. I am able to be flexible and I took advantage of that. And now it's really a non-negotiable. Like I really do need my flexibility.
And that's relatable because flexibility yields a lot of fruit like
Mhm.
work-life balance, protecting your peace. There are a lot of reasons why having that flexibility, family time, family
Yeah.
commitments, right? And so, did those values inform your choice to step away from corporate and into entrepreneurship on any level?
Absolutely. I feel like sometimes people have different goals, right? Like and my goal, I'll be honest, was originally was to climb the corporate ladder. I worked in music. I started at RCA Records and I wanted to do, the label thing. I wanted to climb up. I wanted to maybe move to a Spotify and Apple Music, maybe like run my own label. But I realized what I wasn't willing to give. I realized what people are willing to do at these jobs, and I wasn't willing to do it. So it's just like there has to be an alternative, and maybe the alternative isn't the corporate ladder. It isn't running my own label because I'm just not willing to give the time, the energy, and honestly, the roadmap to burnout that some of these people are willing to do. So
Wow.
once I got into these corporate spaces, I'm realizing, okay, there's what do they call it? Yearly reviews. That's an insane thing. And I know it's very normal for people in these corporate spaces. It's like, yeah, you have your yearly review, you get your raise. And I felt like sometimes the yearly reviews weren't feedback on my actual work, but sometimes it's about like, those corporate politics. Is Christina speaking enough in meetings? Is she speaking too much? Is she, friendly to her coworkers? And I'm just realizing these things are not important to me. I could care less if I'm friendly to you. I'm not disrespectful, but we're here to work. And I realized I just wasn't willing to give a lot of the things that the corporate banter required. That's where I started to lean more into flexibility. And then I leaned more on my way out into entrepreneurship.
Even just digging into that point you made about some of these really coded pieces of feedback, because I'm sure we could both agree feedback serves a purpose of strengthening an ambitious person, right? I love feedback and I'm always receptive to constructive feedback. What I have often, and it sounds like you might have experienced something similar, there is like the corporate politicking where you could be one of the most loved people in your company. You could be one of the most genuinely friendly people in your office. And there's just like this, I almost want to call it like an old boys club or old girls club, that
Yeah.
as Black women, it just feels like the goalpost is constantly moving. So to your point, speaking too much, speaking too little, it becomes this really trite measure of success.
Yeah.
And it begins to feel like more of a game, and a game that is rigged to lead to burnout. So I relate, and
Absolutely.
I think a lot of women listening to you will relate to that as well.
It's like you have the job description and you're reading the job description and you're doing it, but then there's also like this invisible ink on the job description that you don't see that maybe your boss sees or maybe someone on another team sees that you're like, hey, actually, she's not doing these things, but you had no idea you were supposed to do these things, right? Like you're doing the job that you were hired to do, but it's just like, oh, but she's not doing this. She's not speaking up more. She didn't raise her hand for this project. She didn't stay, 3 hours late on set. And it's just like, well, I did what I was asked to do. I completed the task. I excelled in the task. But because you're finding and looking for a reason to knock me down a few points based on, again, the invisible ink on a job description that I didn't even know was there, it's a bit unfair. So I just realized, again, the corporate politics of it all, it's not worth it.
I relate on a very deep level. I've read it as described being a double tax that Black women, you know where I'm going with this, the double tax of there's no room for error. You
No.
must be perfect. And to your point, the invisible ink on a job description, you might be doing everything that you were hired to do. And you're also the, your miscongeniality at your job. And you're just all that mental space leaves you with so little to, even if you wanted to do that second additional project, because you're probably
Right.
already over ambitious and stretching yourself too thin professionally. If you even wanted to do that second and third additional project, it's just like the mental bandwidth shrinks. So I understand that completely. And to that effect, I know that you launched Off Worque in Los Angeles 2 years ago to help women find balance and not burn out. So describe yourself at the moment that you realized you needed to create this business. What were you feeling about your corporate life at that time? And can you give us any specifics about it?
Honestly, so I think I was working at Topicals at the time. So around Christmas, getting into New Year's, we had almost 3 weeks off. I took the time to go to Puerto Rico and I had the time of my life. I was in the forest, I was in the river, I was in the beach. I was doing so many things. I really enjoyed myself. And then I realized I had to get on my flight and go home and go back to my job, go back to my perceived reality at the time. That's when I realized like I'm actually a bit burnt out and this vacation isn't going to cure me. This needs to be a lifestyle change rather than a vacation. I went back home, did a few weeks of work, and I actually was like, you know what? I need another week off. And they allowed it. And in that time, I tried to do everything and nothing, right? I took pottery classes. I did a tennis meetup. I went to the beach and just sat. I prayed, I journaled, I went to lunch with friends I didn't see it for a while. And I realized that this is the kind of things I need to incorporate in my lifestyle. And taking a vacation once a quarter is not going to fix my burnout. I think that was my point when I realized that my lifestyle needed to change and I needed to pivot. And that is really where the ideation around Off Worque was born. I realized not only was the burnout an aspect of it, all of my friends in my community were people that worked in the beauty industry or people that worked adjacent in the beauty industry. So I wasn't really having much community or like opportunity to express myself outside of that because we all kind of did the same thing, talked about the same thing. It was all the same type of things. I wanted more. So Off Worque really just became honestly a place for myself. And the more that I talked about it, I realized other people needed it too.
I love that you focus on community because Off Worque is all about getting out, doing that class, having something on your calendar that is decidedly not work related.
Absolutely.
So talk to us about that. Like you said you were taking tennis, you did pottery classes. What were some of the earlier Off Worque events like?
Babe, I realized I'm not good at tennis, so we can't do that anymore.
You're not Serena?
I'm not at all. But I think the joy of just being out there and trying something new was exciting for me. In the early days, I really tapped into things that I wanted to do. I took a cooking class as well. So we did pizza making classes. That was fun. We dabbed back into doing pottery. So that was amazing. We also did like a facial partnership with Formula Fig, which is a facial place in LA, where we were able to come in and get like facials after work. So honestly, it just became all the things that I wish I could have done while I was after work. And again, the more that I talk about it, I realized I just wasn't alone. Everyone wanted to join, everyone wanted to come. And even outside of the branded events, there were times we just sat in the park. We did a meditation event with my friend Amor, where we honestly just talked about our feelings, journaled, and then meditated. And that's exactly what sometimes what people really need. It doesn't need to be a brand event. It doesn't need to be an activity. Sometimes it's just sitting in the grass and soaking up vitamin D. So those were a lot of the earlier events. And I think that's what really brought people together, an opportunity to do something that was no pressure. And we all enjoyed it.
Exactly. And fostering community with no motive. I know you've mentioned to me before that in Los Angeles, you feel like Los Angeles gets this bad rap for being super transactional in terms of relationships, and that you wanted Off Worque to be the exact opposite of that.
Yeah. It's anti-networking club, low key.
Say more about that. What do you mean by that?
I think when you go to new places, it's very easy to start a general conversation with, hi, I'm Cristina and I work in marketing. And I know how natural it is, but I don't think people realize how there's more to talk about than just the job, right? So with Off Worque, it's an anti-networking club. We're not talking about your job. You don't have to lead with that introduction. It's usually, hi, I'm Cristina and I'm just happy to be here. I'm excited to try this activity, or I saw this on the line and I wanted to make new friends. It isn't like the industry that you work in. I think in LA, like you can kind of get the gist of like, okay, everyone probably has a job, but living there is not cheap. So it's like, I'm sure everyone is working in some way, but because the activity and the setup is so community forward and like centered around conversation, you don't really need to ask anyone what to do. You're so engulfed in the pottery or the pizza making class or the tennis ball that you don't hit, that it becomes more of a, man, I thought I was going to hit the ball, rather than I still have that spreadsheet due tomorrow. So it worked out and became a nice safe space again to just enjoy yourself and not be pressured to talk about work. And I think that's honestly what made people keep coming back.
Yeah.
And it's almost 200 members in LA specifically.
Congratulations. That's huge. That's some incredible scale.
Yeah.
First of all. And what you're saying about focusing on hitting that tennis ball, chatting with that new friend who you're bonding over a cooking class with, and not thinking about that spreadsheet, or not thinking about, the dreaded Sunday scaries, right? It sounds like Off Worque events are geared to ground,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Bring you just back to where you're supposed to be, whatever home looks like to you, whatever peace looks like to you. Because to your point, Sunday scaries, I think everyone has them. I've had them before. And it's honestly just the anxiety of me not having something to do. So my mind is like wandering about all the things I have to do on Monday when I could be trying to hit a tennis ball, So that kind of relieves that. I had tennis, I had pottery, whatever the activity is. I had such a great time. Now I'm in a group chat with 3 other women talking about how bad we were at tennis. Can't wait for the next time. I don't have
Yeah.
time for Sunday scaries now. Now I'm doing my skincare routine. We're texting, I'm getting into bed, and I don't have time for the Sunday scaries anymore. So that's kind of just like the motive around also planning events. We made sure to have them on weekends or also like right after work, so around 6 p.m. So you don't have time to dilly dally and find yourself into negative thoughts and negative thinking or Sunday scaries. You have something on your calendar to do.
Exactly. With like-minded people
Mm-hmm.
who are happy to be there and who are excited to meet you, you know?
Yeah.
When you started Off Work,
Mm-hmm.
were you chasing freedom, impact, or both?
I think on day one, I was chasing freedom. This was honestly something I created for myself, and I thought that I was the only one experiencing this. So, again, if I didn't want to end up in a downward spiral of burnout, I had to do this for myself. So, it was truly for me. Once I started talking about it and getting more people involved, they're just like, oh, I can't wait for your first event. I'm just like, oh, this is just, a thought in my diary. I didn't think that anyone would care. It became impactful. I started to realize like how I'm actually impacting people. People are thanking me for holding space for them. People are thanking me for giving them something to do. This is exactly what I needed. Those are the compliments that I started to get. And I'm just like, oh, this is what we all need. The people actually need this. So it became more impactful for me. And that's where we started to move into a nonprofit space where we started to move in more of an impactful space. As you look at my resume, like I've sold a lot of products, I've sold a lot of things on the internet, but this was a bit of a same pivot into like still marketing. I still am marketing my business, but this is for a feeling, an impact rather than a product sold, which has a different like KPI. So that was really exciting for me as well.
And are you free?
Am I free? I'm close to free. I'm close to free. I think sometimes I have to remind myself of why I'm doing this and who this is for. This is for me originally. But there are times where I'm just like, oh, wait a minute. It's 11 o'clock. Why am I still on this computer? But then I go back into reminding myself of my practices. Like, okay, let's get into a good skincare routine. Let's get into a good cup of tea. Let's get back into the routine that I told myself I would give myself rather than subjecting to corporateness. So I would say I'm freer than most. Yes.
Amen. And I asked that, and I appreciate you being so candid because what's important is what does freedom mean to me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you've once told me that it's really important to you to honor your mission.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that in the context of thinking about partnerships and
Yeah.
talk about, even as we started the conversation with that incredible partnership between Marketer Hub and Off Work, right? Like that's a very mission aligned partnership. Talk to us about your approach to how you think about partnerships when it comes to Off Work.
Absolutely. So when I think about partnerships, I'm looking for someone that is going to hit our pillars, right? Are you community forward? Is there a mental health angle here? Do you allow or not allow, because we're allowed to be anywhere as women and people of color, but are you promoting safe spaces and access to your facility for Black and Brown people? Are you
Yes.
offering affordable or accessibility into the practice at your, because again, this is a club, but this is not something I want to hit people over the head for $300 for an experience. Wellness shouldn't be expensive. Wellness should be accessible. So those are the things I'm thinking about when it comes to partnerships. Places like Marketer Hub, I think one, it's affordable. Two, it's our target audience. A lot of women, Black women are suffering from burnout. I'm looking at places like Formula Fig who offer wellness at a beauty aspect. Everyone would love a good facial. That'll definitely put you in a good mood. And just partnering with Reiki practitioners, we've done meditation. So just thinking about like what service people are able to provide, how it can impact our community, and then what they're doing outside of Off Work. Again, like I want you to be marketing and supporting people of color, giving people access to your practice that isn't hitting them over the head. So like, what are you doing outside of Off Work? I don't want this to be a first time partnership where, oh, this is my opportunity to give to Black and Brown people. No, you need to be doing this 365. This needs to be your everyday thing.
Sincerely.
Exactly. So that is what I'm looking for in terms of partnership. I want to make sure that we have true alignment and this is not just a fad, because wellness, unfortunately, is turning into a bit of a fad. And I want to make sure that we are staying mission aligned.
And as you talk about being intentional about these
Mhm.
partnerships, and are these organizations doing the work year round to include Black and Brown people, Black and Brown women? We're
Mhm.
talking about identity. And I wonder, have you ever fallen into the trap of identifying yourself as your career or job title? And if so,
Absolutely.
what did it take? Like, get specific so that our readers and listeners can go, all right, I really admire Cristina Jerome. Oh, she's experienced that same thing that I did. She was putting her identity in this job. What specific things did you do? And what was it that set it off for you that you were like, oh, something's got to change?
I think specifically when you're working at a small company, so think Topicals, think Camille Rose, think The Do, the company wants you to be a part of the brand holistically. And I don't think that that's something that you need to do as a contractor, a full-time employee at all, because this is not your company, right? You're just here to work. It became a point where it wasn't a requirement, but it was a very strong suggestion to add the company and your title to your bio. It made the founders feel like we're a part of a team, like we're a family. And I think sometimes those become yellow flags for me because I have a strong distinction between what family looks like, my actual family versus my work life. Those are two very separate things. So that was the point for me where I realized, whoa, this is becoming a little bit too tied in my identity. I became Cristina, the social media marketer that worked at these places, rather than Cristina, the human being. I think after I left Camille Rose completely, I stopped putting companies in my bio. I think my bio right now is very long marketing resume, but I'd rather be off work. And it's going to stay that way for quite some time. I don't plan on adding another company to my bio, but that was the point where I'm just realizing, whoa, my whole identity, my whole Instagram started to be a portfolio. Like, here's what I did at this job. Let me break down my marketing strategy. And don't get me wrong, there's whole content creators and niches about that. Love that for you. I like the beach. I like to post my food. I like to post the forest, things that make me happy, things that bring me joy. It's not always going to be work. But that was the point where I realized, why is this in my about me? That's not about me. It's about work. It needs to be about me. So this now my about me is about me.
That's exactly the same thinking of shifting our mindset around work. You mentioned earlier how LA is such an expensive city, right? And I would think that that fosters a culture of overwork, right?
Yeah.
And New York is similar,
Mhm.
where even if our values are firmly grounded in family and firmly grounded in community, the stark reality of living in a city where you could easily be spending 40% of your income on housing,
Mm-hmm.
it creates this race to the bottom, I call it,
Yeah.
towards burnout. And
Yeah.
especially what you mentioned, I love the way you said that, Cristina, about it's a yellow flag for you when a company is referring to itself as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think people need to hear because especially small companies and
Yeah.
startups love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they think that they're building a brand, but then it becomes like putting the cult in culture.
I also want to acknowledge the feeling, right? Because you are, say you're a new person to the city, you get your first job and you go to the small company and these are all of your friends. This becomes your community. You're at work for 8 hours a day. So it does feel nice to add this to your bio, to feel like you're a part of a group, a part of a community. So I do want to acknowledge that feeling because I think that's where it started from for me. It felt nice to be there. I have these cool friends. I'm having this cool job. I'm being flown out. Like I'm really enjoying my life. But I realized that just wasn't all of my life, right?
Exactly.
There's more to me. So I do want to acknowledge that you do feel like you're a part of a community and you are a part of the community. That's just not the only community you are. And I just want more people to give themselves holistically a 100% and not make that 100% their job title because we don't care. I don't care what you do for work.
And the duality, especially for those of us who are recovering overachievers,
Hmm.
the duality of we can be excellent in our profession. And the profession is literally, at least speaking for myself, 10% of my overall life.
Right.
And what's important to me, and when this light bulb went off for me, really in 2020,
Mm.
similar to you, in 2020, it was the first time, like many people, that I was working in a remote first role. And I was in that role for 3 years and loved my relationship with my colleagues. I really loved being at that company. And what it opened my eyes about was A, I have the drive, ambition, and talent to own my own business. So I
Yeah.
started my own business. I started the Crystal Energy Company, my marketing firm in 2020. And that's when it clicked for me that I want to liberate myself in the long term from the corporate structure, frankly, because if we're calling it freedom,
Hmm.
to be able to, I'll be very honest, take my mom to a doctor's appointment in the middle of the workday,
Yeah.
right? I'm really blessed where my partner also is very supportive. We're very family oriented, and he happens to be in a remote first role right now. So he's able to drive us there, and he's able to work from a coffee shop next to the hospital while I'm taking her to this follow-up appointment. And the very idea, Cristina, that it has become so normalized, at least in the United States, because I've lived in the UK and I would say it's very, very different. In the US, it has become so commonplace for folks of sober mind to plan their life around their work, as opposed to my operating principles are planning my work around my life. And Off Worque is very similar in practice to that premise. You're giving women the opportunity, especially those of them that are very ambitious like you and I, to turn off and to have something on their calendar at 6 p.m. or 6:30 that is strictly offline.
And you're so excited. I'm like pressed. You get the notification that's reminder in 15 minutes, you have a spa appointment. I'm like, I do. You have a spa appointment. Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I want to ask you, because Off Worque, it's creating a grounding practice. And so I wonder, how have you navigated the challenging parts of entrepreneurship? Specifically, I wonder if a lot of women consider the fact that, as challenging as corporate politicking might be, entrepreneurship has a whole new set of challenges that probably haven't even presented themselves corporately. And so I'm curious, how have you navigated what I call the trials and tribulations, the valleys of entrepreneurship? Specifically, if you could share one example across Off Worque or work-life balance where you really had to pause and maybe reassess or reconfigure your strategy. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I will start with my move and why I've also kind of shifted the messaging from when Off Worque was founded in LA to now I'm here in DC. Well, one, LA has a lot of access to brand, and it's very easy for me to get a brand partnership that aligns with my mission and is super successful. But to your point about being mission aligned and impact, while I felt like it was impactful, it wasn't really serving the people in the way that I needed to serve them. Yes, going to Formula Fig to get facials looks great on Instagram. It's a one-time thing, but then it's kind of like, how are you incorporating that into your routine? So I realized that I needed to teach people. I want to be a little bit more educational rather than giving them that fun, cool thing to do when they get off work, to have them ingrain this into their routines, into their lifestyle, rather than a one-off situation. So when I moved to DC, August of 2024, I moved back home. I'm from the DMV area. I'm from Virginia originally. I realized that if I really wanted to make this impactful and educational, I needed to take my time to reframe our messaging. So I am garnering attention and routine and not just brand and celebrity and excitement and gift bags. I think it's very easy to get caught up into that, which I will say is a financial hit. People are not super excited sometimes about routine and journaling and workshops. People really love Pilates events that are sponsored by Lululemon and you get a free workout. So I realized that I'm going to have to take a hit financially when it comes to events. I'm going to have a lot less turnout, but a more impactful turnout. I'm no longer having 50 people at my events. I'm having 15 people at my events, but now these people have more practice into their routine rather than getting a free gift bag and taking photos. So I had to take a step back and realize, hey, this is not actually what I want to do intentionally business-wise. I'm going to have to take a hit financially, as in I'm not making as much money as I was. It's a nonprofit, so it's not going back into the business's pocket to continue to fund. But I rather have my messaging hit exactly who I need it to be intentionally rather than it hit a bunch of people and it's exciting, looks great on Instagram, but it's not really impactful or changing people's lives. The point of Off Worque is to help change your life, your lifestyle, not so much the gift bag and the photo and the Lululemon of it all. So I think sometimes people will start off of a vision and this is what I want to do and this is my business, and then you'll get into it and you'll realize the audience that you're attracting is not the target audience you thought that you would. So you have to kind of pivot and be okay with that pivoting and also be okay with the cost of that pivoting. Sometimes it is financial. Sometimes you have to redo a website. Sometimes you have to redo your business structure. Like maybe you were an LLC and you need to change to an Inc. or change to an S Corp or change what that costs. So kind of just like understanding the cost of the pivot to the right direction versus staying in the wrong place for a long time. That's going to cost you even more. So that was my big like turning point. I'm just like, If I really want to be impactful and teach people how to live better lives, I do have to take a step back. It's okay that my events aren't 50, 100 people. I touched 12 people. I touched 20 people today. Great. Mission accomplished.
And it's impact over optics.
Absolutely.
Right. Exactly that. And I appreciate you being so candid just about the financial impact of that type of choice.
It's very easy to charge, 100 people, $20 to took a Pilates class that's sponsored by Lululemon. So it's like, they're not charging me, they're paying for the event. So if I'm charging people on top of it, I'm coming in at a 200% versus subtracting all of that, right? No brand partnerships, no venue. We're in the park, we're meditating. What am I charging you for, right? Nothing. So then it becomes donation based. I made maybe $30, but everyone in that room now knows how to meditate before bed to feel calmer so they don't have Sunday scaries. And that's the return on investment, not the dollar amount.
And that's Off Worque.
Yes, exactly
By
that.
Cristina Jerome. Exactly that. And so I would love to hear, how have you navigated moments of doubt, disappointment, or even grief related to your business? And let's be clear, I'm not talking about imposter syndrome, which I happen to think doesn't exist.
That's a hot take. I love that. We'll get into that one day.
I don't think imposter syndrome exists. It's something I only have ever heard talked about in the context of women. I have never in my life, and I'm in my mid-30s, heard the term imposter syndrome be applied or ascribed to men. And I happen to agree firmly with what the Harvard Business Review, a woman who writes with the Harvard Business Review, published a few years ago. Stop telling women that they have imposter syndrome. And she expresses that really eloquently. But I felt so seen when she wrote that, and that was years ago. Because I have never in my life experienced imposter syndrome, but I have experienced, at least corporately, being talked down to is the word that comes to mind. I've experienced corporately being belittled. And being belittled is not the same thing as experiencing imposter syndrome. I know that I deserve to be in that room. And I know that I've factually, especially as a Black woman immigrant, experienced that double tax and had to work twice as hard to even be there. So and so treating me as if I'm lucky to be there or as if I shouldn't be there doesn't mean I have imposter syndrome. It means that the system is contracting against me. So I'm not asking you about imposter syndrome. I'm asking you, how have you navigated those moments of doubt, disappointment, or even grief related to your business? And how have you persevered?
When I made the marketing and business pivot to be more impactful rather than shout out and cloudy and cool, I did grieve the 100-person event, the brand sponsorship, the gift bag. I just thought it was so great. I felt like I was utilizing my old resources, my marketing resources to pour into my wellness business, and it was working. So I loved it. I felt great. But when I realized I wasn't doing the impact that I wanted and I pivoted and then I saw the result of those 15 people, it did make me feel a little less accomplished. I was just like, oh, okay. Do people even like what I have going on? Do people care about Off Worque? Or did people only care about it for the brand activation of it all? It took me a minute to sit with myself, back with my mission, going to my original notebook and seeing where I wrote out what the point of Off Worque is. And also just conversations with God of like, what am I doing on this earth? And I think that when you realign yourself, not to get all holy in the chat, but when you realign yourself,
please do. At Hard Launch, one thing we're going to do is acknowledge the goodness of God. Honestly, like every single person I've spoken with has talked about stepping out on faith, has talked about faith that moves a mountain, and that's where I live as well. So please, you are welcome to speak freely.
I had to realign myself with God's mission for me and not the mission that I had for myself earthly, like fleshly on earth. Fleshly, I love a Lululemon gift bag. I do. But that's not why I'm here. This is not the purpose of that. So I had to realign myself. My faith is being tested. My purpose is being tested. But just realizing that the feeling that I was looking for in that shout out or that collaboration post or the money being sponsored is the same feeling that I'm getting from hugging 12 people in a room that just talked about their burnout and just wrote affirmations to themselves and just promised themselves that self-care moment that they need every Friday. It was that same feeling. So it's just like, that's what I need to be chasing and not what it looks like. It's the feeling. Like, how can I continue to chase this feeling? And again, that is God's purpose for me. I'll admit, I love a gift. We all love a gift bag. We love free things. We're women. We're not going to sit here and shy away from that. But The grief really came from me moving, shifting my lifestyle, and also kind of rearranging what it looks like to have that off-work lifestyle in a new state. Did my off-work lifestyle only exist in LA? I'm here for a year now. It's proven no. It's a lifestyle change. So outside exists. We have hikes here. We have matcha here. I had to reimagine it, for myself here. And it's like, again, what I'm doing is working. God's testament is here, proof on life that this is working. And I'm chasing the feeling of impact and lifestyle change and not a collaboration pose. So I felt a bit of discouragement, and that's normal. I just want to normalize that. It's okay to feel at a miss because you thought that you were doing something and you felt great about that thing, but it's not the best thing for you. It's kind of like eating a large fry. Like, yeah, that large fry tastes good, but is that the best thing for you? Probably not. The fruit doesn't taste bad either. So stick with the fruit. That's what you're here for.
Amen and amen. Would you consider yourself a risk taker, or are you more risk averse? As a kid, what was your baseline?
100% risk taker. And I used to think it was problematic. I used to think that my friends and family would judge me and say, wow, Christina's just picking up and moving again. Christina just quit another job. What is she going to do? But Christina always lands on her feet. So there's never an issue when it comes to the next job, the next bag, the next opportunity. I've never had that problem. That's why I think Off Worque kind of runs so freely to me, because it's never a monetary thing. Thank God, I've never been homeless. I've never been hungry. I've been close. We've been close, but I've never been there. So I've always taken risks. And I think that's what's kind of getting me closer to my goal and closer to where I want to be, because I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to take the risks. I'm willing to jump, because every time I jump, a net appears every single time. Where does it come from? My faith, the Lord. Every time I jump, it worked out.
Yeah.
From college, I moved to Miami. Literally 2 weeks after I graduated college, I moved to Miami. No job, just vibes. I moved to LA a month before the pandemic. For the entire year, I didn't have a job. I was on the internet preaching about the marketing that I want to do, the things that I want to do, and it worked out. So I'm always going to take a risk, because it always works out in my favor. And I think people should also push themselves to take more risks, because I think that when you get comfortable and you get complacent in what you're doing, you don't really have room to grow. Because imagine you're like 70 and you're just like, oh, I wish I could have did this. No, reach your full potential today. Do it today.
And definitely to your point in terms of striving to live a life with no regrets. Mm-hmm. So my home church, my pastor Bernard, once asked our congregation, and I'm paraphrasing, what happens when a community is socialized to be chronically risk averse? And so what that brought to my mind was kind of what we talked about before, of like, a lot of us have been socialized in the workplace that it needs to be perfect because there's no room for mistake. Everyone else is allowed to make mistakes, but for us, it's perfection, or you could walk through that door and leave.
Right.
And so it really challenged me, this was a few years ago, to think, how can I make sure that I'm taking calculated risks, smart risks, mm-hmm. that are as big as my faith?
Yeah.
And once I started challenging myself, Cristina, to do that, my life changed. Mm-hmm. And I was more at peace with the non-linear career path that entrepreneurship has taken me on.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say I really appreciate your candor, just talking about every time you've jumped, a net has appeared.
Mm-hmm. Every single time. And then also to your point, I want to add that I'm also looking at the larger picture. Like, yes, I may have moved to the city and I don't have the community I need today, but time is going to pass anyway, right? So time can pass and I put myself in a position to grow, or time could pass and I'm still in a shell that no longer fits. So where would I rather be? So I think about that often. We're in 2026. 2020, half of my resume would have been gone. I didn't have half of the experience. I didn't have half of the lived experience. I lived in another city across the country. There's so much things that I've done in the past 6 years alone. So imagine what happens when I get to year 10. Now that I put myself in a new city, a new position to grow, I only see abundance. And I know that sometimes people hearing this are probably thinking like, well, let's be realistic. This is my reality. This is realistic for me. And I want this to be realistic for you. You are able to take these risks and it does work out for you. You are able to take calculated risks that benefit you for the long run. And I want you to start thinking that way rather than, what am I going to do tomorrow? Or how am I going to do this next month? think about where you're going to be a year from now. Because a year from
Exactly.
now, last year, I was at my mom's house actually regrouping to move to DC. And a year later, I'm re-signing my lease. I have too many clients to count and a thriving off work with mental health awareness month starting in the next few days. So look what happened in just a year.
What a difference a day makes. Like
Mm-hmm.
that time exactly is going to pass anyway. And I agree completely in terms of long-term thinking grounded in abundance and not scarcity,
Yeah.
abundance and not fear,
Yeah.
right?
Say that my Wi-Fi is abundance. Literally, I connect to abundance. I'm gonna show you because I don't want literally abundant. That's I'm connected to abundance.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love those reminders. So on my phone, I have a series of, the iPhone reminder app.
Mhm.
So I have a number of affirmations that I've written over the years that come up periodically during the day. And one of them is, I am a strong, intelligent, kind visionary who can and will achieve my goals and manifest the destiny that God has laid out for me.
I love that. I needed to hear that.
Thank you. And I wrote that when I lived in London, and that has been my daily reminder every morning since the year, Christina, since 2015 when I moved to
Wow.
London.
I love that. I needed to hear that as well today. Felt like the days are dragging, but it's like I have the opportunity. I have the space to be able to get up and do this. I have this brand that people are excited for. So like let me take the opportunity that I have. Like, yes, I'm tired. I don't want to write another event description, but I get to write another event
You get
description.
to do it.
Yeah, I
You
get to
get
do
to do
it.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Okay, so we're going to talk about this money, right?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Get into it.
So, what was the annual income from your most recent 9 to 5
Mm-hmm.
that you resigned from in order to focus more on off work? Another way you could think of this was, what was that number that you left behind? And you're kind of looking at going, what do I need to do with off work to get there or to double it?
So I will say that my comfort zone, my sweet spot is 130. I would say that I've traded that 130 corporate for closer to like 90 to 100 flexibility, and it's worth it. It's worth it. Absolutely. I think at this point, so again, just to be transparent, through off work, this is not a quit your job. This is a yes and this and. So through off work, out of off work, I have that as a nonprofit. I still do marketing consulting as my entrepreneurship. So I'm not making the same money that I was making through corporate, but I'm making enough to still have my needs met, my wants are still met, and I have that flexibility. I think the few things that you do kind of lose is the great health insurance, the corporate perks you get, but I finesse that through the client. Some way, somehow, I'm going to get the insurance that I need. I find it. But I think that when it comes to the corporate ladder and the money that you're making in corporate, I think you have to kind of decide what is your threshold on like how your bills are going to be paid, how much you need for savings, how much you need to get all of your wants and needs met, and then also what you're willing to sacrifice. And that 30K, I was willing to let it go, 30, 40K, I was willing to let it go for the peace of mind and not having to, again, the corporate politics. It's worth it. So I paid it. I swiped my card, I slashed my salary for it. And I think it's worked out in my benefit, again, for my overall goal of wellness and lifestyle. I don't want to be stressed out. I don't want to have the Sunday scaries. I do want to have the flexibility. And while the sacrifice of 40K sounds insane, I think it was worth it. I'm not stressed out. And I'm still having my needs met and my bills are paid. I'm not hungry or looking for anything. I still can go get the smoothie. I still can go do what I need to do. I just realize that sometimes we get caught up in the six-figure talk of it all. I think everyone wants to make six figures, and we're not realizing how few people actually make six figures, and then how few of people that look like us actually make six figures, and then how few of us that look like us that are make six figures that are maintaining six figures. When you realize it's just not, I don't want to say it's not sustainable, but sometimes it's just not the goal anymore. I pivoted, I made it. I loved it. I had a great time making that 130. But now that I'm in that 90, 100K range, I still feel successful. And I think, again, I'm chasing the feeling, not the optics of it all. So I'm happy to pay the price.
People need to hear that. Like, what is the trade-off? And for you, it's been worth it. And I resonate with that. And so how much did it actually cost to launch Off Worque?
Ooh. So I will say the marketing, I think, is going to be the most expensive. And I got that for free because I can do that on my own. And since Off Worque is a community initiative, I think a lot of people believed in the mission. So I did get a lot of things for free. The website photography was done by a friend. The website I did on my own. Signing up to be a nonprofit and doing that paperwork costs a few $100. So I would say startup fees less than 5K. Less than 5K. But again, I have the privilege of community and support and people believing in the mission and people wanting to jump on board. I'm not selling a product. I'm not selling a fad. I'm selling a lifestyle that's going to help you in the long run. So I think it was a lot easier for people to kind of jump on board and want to support. But monetarily, I would say about 5K or so. I don't spend a lot of money. People are willing to give me venues for free. People, again, I'm getting product donations, I'm getting brand donations for free, all towards the mission. So I think the value is really in the mission and not so much the monetary cost.
And you mentioned something that touches on the next question. So because of your marketing expertise, you were able to do that in-house, which is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you do delegate? For example, do you do your own taxes or do you have an accountant? Do you do your own? Yeah.
Shout out to him because your girl can't count, y'all. Your girl cannot count. She's a marketing girl. I cannot count. So I do have external support. I do have someone. I also have an advisory board. So they also help me with like some of the larger aspects of it. I think we'll get into this a bit later in the interview. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think the best test is all the things that you have to do that you aren't necessarily good at. I think sometimes working a corporate job is easier because you're hired for that one thing that you're skilled to do. I am not a financial girl. I am not a lawyer. So I'm realizing all of these skills that I have to outsource or I have to have support, have someone make templates for. I had someone make some templates for me. Shout out to Emily that helped me with my overall brand design, my logo, photography done by Amina. So it's like I did have my accountant, Mark. So it's just like there are some outside support that I do have that does cost. But again, like it balances it out in terms of like the cost of me needing it versus what I can do myself. So I still think marketing is kind of like the biggest expense. And your girl does that for free.
Exactly. And so talk a little bit more about the reality of entrepreneurship. Exactly that. When you are an employee, you are generally hired to do things that are in your wheelhouse, right? No one is hiring a salesperson to also be an engineer, right? Or the engineer is not expected to bring in $1 million contract with new business. So if you could go into the details of your advisory board, just help people understand exactly how you set about creating that, who's on it, number one. And number two, what has entrepreneurship taught you about letting people help you, you know?
Yeah, I think when you are creating an advisory board, you have to be completely honest with yourself about your deficits. What are you not good at? What can you delegate? For me, operations, tricky, very tricky for me. Operations, also someone that's experienced in nonprofit funding, someone that's also experienced in nonprofit marketing. We also had someone on the team that's great with partnerships that can reach a little bit stronger than I can. So I had 5 people on my board. We had operations, we had marketing, we had fundraising, and then we had 2 partnerships people. We also had someone that wasn't so much like on the advisory board but he's a personal friend of mine that kind of just helped me with finance outside of Mark, my accountant. So it's just like having that well-rounded experience of things and people that I'm not so good at. And these are people that are experts and again, want to support and delegate within like my mission.
Yeah.
It really helped me get to where I need to go. So that was who's on my board and how has really helped me. A lot of the partnerships go through them. A lot of the operational systems they have set up for me, walked me through. So it's like making my life easier because I am a one person band. There's only one person here. It's me outside of my advisory board.
So solopreneur.
It's myself. Every now and then we'll have a few like volunteers, but when it comes to like payroll or like people that are like full time, it's really just me.
And how did you, I know you touched on this, but would love for you to expand upon it a bit more so everyone really understands. You mentioned the challenge of deciding, okay, are you going to go from an LLC to an S Corp or to an Inc.? Talk to us a little bit about the differences between those things.
I don't want to give false advice. There is someone that I want to offer the podcast. Her name is Serena. She helped me figure out what I wanted to do because I wasn't really sure. But I will say, as a nonprofit, the ethics of a nonprofit is what I align to, and I want it to be impactful. So that's why I went for a nonprofit rather than LLC. I also have an LLC, Work. Work is the marketing agency. Off Worque is the nonprofit. So branding wise, it worked. I think also what kind of pushed me is the opportunity for grants and funding. There's a lot of money in federal grants here, now that I'm here in DC. And I actually saw Hinge used to have a $1 million pledge where they were supporting communities. And that's what really prompted me into like really going forward with the nonprofit route, because I wanted to be able to receive that grant. Did I get it? No, but it didn't stop the mission here at Off Worque. But looking at the true definitions of each one, looking at your brand ethics and seeing where you want to be. And if it is a for-profit business, that's 100% okay. We live in times where you need money. So if it's a for-profit business, go for it. Because I'm a nonprofit, I don't owe the same amount of taxes as other people. My money also needs to be spent. I have to zero out. So money is being spent and allocated in certain type of ways versus an LLC. You don't get to like profit or make money from it. But just deciding what your brand stands for and then looking at the true definitions of each type of tax exemption or lack thereof, that's going to help you decide where you should be. Some people are making multi-millions of dollars and they have a team. So that's where you want to lean into more of an S corp versus an LLC or a sole proprietorship. You don't even have to go that route. You can save money on your taxes.
Thank you for even sharing that, because I think people just need to start to put their head in that space of there are a lot of tax implications to running a business. There are a lot of ways and a lot of tools out there that can honestly help educate us about what might be the best route.
I'm still learning. We sell a card game online. I'm a nonprofit thinking that I don't need to charge people taxes. I have to charge you taxes. So I at a fault, I now owe the taxes because I wasn't charging people taxes, thinking I don't have to pay taxes. That's not true. So find someone to support you. The internet is vast and full of information, but find someone to fact check it, find a professional, find someone pro bono. There's a lot of people that offer just pro bono support for just like a call, maybe get your questions in line and have them help you, because paying taxes it's not fun. So find a way to make it work for you in terms of like the tax bracket that you want to fit in. If it's an LLC, an S corp or a C corp or a nonprofit, figure out what works for you, but have that professional advice, because then you won't owe taxes.
And that's one of the practical things, right? That I want people to take away from Hard Launch is just, what are the things that entrepreneurs, as they're getting started and as they're iterating on their business, what do they automate or outsource? You know? So I appreciate you sharing a bit about that as well. What would you do differently in the first 90 days of Off Worque, looking back?
Honestly, nothing. I think the first 90 days were perfect. We were just getting started. I wasn't so keen on having everything look a certain type of way. It wasn't overly polished. It was just Off Worque, a bunch of people enjoying themselves off work. I think after the first 90 days is when I started to like really turn my marketing and branding brain on. So that's when things started to get very polished, not in a bad way, but I think in the first 90 days, it was rough, it was real, it was raw. And I think that's what, a lifestyle change looks like. So the first 90 days, I wouldn't change anything. I absolutely loved it.
I love that. What advice would you give to someone who is ambitious like you, who comes from corporate and has this dream and they've been executing on that idea after work and they want to go full time with this and take it all the way, but they are stuck in the yoke of perfectionism? What advice would you give them in terms of taking that one step to really get the ball moving on their project and their business?
I think that, and it's cliche to say, but you have to get out of your own way. And I think a lot of times when it comes to perfectionism, it's us bullying ourselves over a curriculum that we made that no one is holding us accountable for. No one is checking to if you saved it in a PNG or a JPEG, or if your website is a .com or like no one cares, right? People want to feel connectivity. People want to see themselves in your art and your project. They want to find useful in your products. So just put it out there. Allow your space or time for tweaks. I think that's what my best attribute was with Off Worque. What it looked like 2 years ago is not what it looked like today. And if I had waited for today, it would be 2028. So with that being said, just go ahead and put yourself out there. Get out of your own way. You have plenty of times to refine. I'll even give an example with a card game I'll show you. So this is the new edition that's coming out. This is a hard box. This is a very hard box. This is not right. So if I had waited for this to come out, we would have never got to January 23rd, I think is when we launched it. We would still be, waiting on the perfected product. But if you bought this, you're not going to say, whoa, cool new bot. Why didn't I get that one? You're very excited for this. You have no problem. You're what you bought is what you got, and you're excited to play the game. This is not really big of a difference. It's also not a cost difference either. So it's just like if I had waited for this, I would be continuing to wait. Start here. This is also good. This is just as good as here. And you're going to continue to get better. Yeah. Start here because this is also not the finish. I want to add more text. If I'm putting this on a shelf, you don't know what this is. So that's my next iteration. But that isn't this.
Iterating, exactly.
This doesn't mean that this is bad though. You know, this is a great start. People invested in this. I've sold almost 100 games. We're very close, sister. Very, very close to 100 games.
Congratulations, Cristina.
Thank you. So imagine if I had waited, I'd be at 0. So,
and that's good advice. Start today. What tools can't you live without when it comes to running your business?
You want me to give them the tea? Canva is number 1. When it comes to editing graphics, I have templates there. I did hire someone to give me templates. It's making my life so much easier. CapCut, I'm a video girl. It's very easy for me to shoot content, get it on CapCut and edit it very well. I am a ChatGPT girl. I like to use ChatGPT to organize my thoughts and put things in a organized document. It's not so much for ideation, but it's taking my ideas that are scattered or chicken scratch and making it more optimized, making it organized, giving myself like, all right, these are my ideas. Where do I start? So using ChatGPT to organize. Gemini is that girl. Shout out to Google. I am a Google Workspace person. Everything in Google Suite has been used and will be used. Love it down. Is there anything that is maybe new? I use Unfold a lot for templates. Again, I'm not a graphic designer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfold.
So if you're someone that struggles with graphics, I think that finding things like Unfold is super helpful. Unfold is an app that allows you to have templates and you can drop photos and text and it makes it look super clean, super clear. So all of our graphics that are these text graphics are actually Unfold. I just screenshot and put them in
That's
Unfold.
awesome.
Yeah. So just finding applications to make your life easier, again, based on your deficits. You have to be honest with yourself and say, hey, I'm not good at graphic design. Let me get me something that's going to cost me $20 a year. You know, Unfold is like $29.99 a year to make my life easier. So yeah.
Exactly. Work smart.
Not hard.
Well, you know, honestly, entrepreneurship, you work hard. You work very hard, but you also work smart.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now final question. Someone's listening to your story and they're really inspired by you and they feel motivated to take action on their business. They are a full-time corporate employee and they've been building something for themselves that they recognize that their community needs. What is your advice for someone who only has 10 hours a week to give to their business right now? How do you recommend that they structure that time?
Yeah. So a few things that I would do, which is perfect because I give myself also 2 hours a day to figure out all of that as well. Ideation. I think people are very anti scrolling or inspiration. It doesn't necessarily need to be scrolling, but maybe go outside. Take yourself to an event, to a networking event, a creative event, something where you can actually go and get inspired. I would do one of those, 2 of those if you can a week. That's very, very exciting. Brain dumps. Your girl has a bunch of brain dumps. Take an hour to just write out. They don't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be a full thought. It honestly just needs to be whatever is going on in your brain and putting it on paper. It's going to help you come back to it and be able to execute at a later time when you do have time. And it's also written down and memorialized on paper, which we're losing, right? We're losing paper and pen. So
I'm old school, so I'm with you. I'm a writer. I journal. I write with a paper and a pen. I'm right there with you.
I also would recommend taking a few hours of that time for execution. Like, what can you do? I think one of my biggest things that my therapist has taught me is preparing. A lot of times you feel idle. It's just like, oh, I'm not here yet. I'm going to break through. Prepare for the moment. Prepare yourself for what your big break is. Is your website up to date? Is your product being ordered? Are you working on, your next iteration? Prepare yourself for the opportunity. So give yourself a few hours a week as well for execution, because it's one thing to be inspired. It's one thing to write it all done. What is getting done? What is actually getting done? So give yourself a few hours for execution and prepare yourself for that moment. Again, you don't only have 10 hours a week, so it doesn't need to be a full-fledged website, but get the bio page done. Get the services page done. Do one thing, a day, and it's shipping yourself away at your bigger goal. So those are the 3 things: execution, inspiration, and then also just writing everything out in your notebooks. Shout out to Off Worque.
Yeah, I love it at the back too. Christina, this has been Miss Cristina Jerome for Off Worque, and this is Hard Launch. I have loved this conversation so much, Christina. And
Yeah,
thank you
thank
for
you.
spending the time with us. And I'm confident that folks are going to be empowered and feel equipped to take those next steps.
Thank you for having me. This is such a safe space. I want to say, I want to thank you for holding space. I think sometimes these interviews are like podcasts in a sense they become like a grilling situation. So I really just appreciate you for holding space, for allowing me to be candid. This is probably the most honest I've been in quite some time. So thank you for allowing me the space to even say things out loud. Because it's also just reminding 7-year-old me that, wow, you really are that girl. So thank you.
Amen. Thank you. That means so much. That means so much. Thank you, Christina.